All right, so the third episode of My Adventures of Superman came out this week. We didn't really know we were going to talk about it, but we liked the premiere a lot, so here we are. I'll start out. This was probably my favorite episode of the show so far. You guys should really watch this if you're a Superman fan, and even not. I really think this show will do a good job of exposing you to the character and getting you interested because it understands Superman a lot and it's very digestible. I would give this episode like an 8 out of 10. Got a really great moment at the end with Superman and Lois that I really loved and understood the characters incredibly well. James?
Yeah, I think the very last line of this episode made the episode for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that what it was fun to see them going through like the Lois chasing down Superman, stuff like very early days of Superman stuff. It was fun. The villains were okay. It was cool to get a drop that it's Intergang, or that they're kind of already starting to set up Intergang. They're getting right to it. But I was like, yeah, it's fine. But for me, what really set it apart was that last line where, okay, this is a very independent Lois. This is a Lois that is very much, I don't know what quite the right word is. Not energetic, but she's, I think, the most like just chase the target Lois Lane that we've seen in a minute.
Yeah, for
And,
sure. She's a very assertive character.
She's a
and
go-getter.
and I was curious how they would play like with the kind of typical Lois Lane beats with her, and I was enjoying it well enough. But the fact that she just instantly is already seeing through a layer of what Superman is doing, that kind of made the episode for me. It changed it from what I was going to say. It was just kind of some fun early filler kind of stuff. I enjoyed it. And Lois was good in this episode.
Yeah, she feels like a really good modern take on the character. She kind of has like that young spunk, but it's adapted to her typical character traits. I think it's really, really compelling, honestly. Liam, what do you think about this episode?
I mean, it's all right. I feel that it is absolutely on par with the other two. It did not blow my mind. I'll say that. It remains very cute. I think if I had like a little kid running around and I wanted them to get into Superman, this is one of the better things to do it. Just because it's very accessible and fun and light, and it even goes into characters that are not your standard Lex Luthor Superman fare. Like we mentioned, we got the very early beginnings of Intergang in this episode, which is cool, even though they did literally nothing for me.
Banshee's in this episode, and I thought it was fun.
That was neat. That was pretty neat.
It's all right. I don't know. It's gonna take more for me than just like this character is X, Y, or Z, or will become X, Y, or Z. That's not, as someone who is not as deep in Superman lore as you guys are. That's not enough for me. I want them to be. I like Spectacular Spider-Man. We made this comparison last time. Succeeded in taking a character like, I don't know, I'll use like Vulture, I guess. Like Vulture, and giving Vulture a backstory that was digestible and easy to follow when I was a kid, but was still like deep enough and had enough complexity going on that it was an interesting character that was it was all the Spectacular Spider-Man villains. It's not just, oh look, that guy is like Craven or will become Craven. It's you feel like you understand the character, which I feel like this show is getting to.
It's to get people to perk up and be like, oh wow, that's cool. They're doing that character. Let me go check that out. You're totally right. I get what you're saying, but I do think it's done with like more like subtlety. I know that's like a cringy word to use, but it's done with more like tact.
I'm gonna put it like this, and then I think it's safe to move on from this point. We can talk about the actual episode. But if the show continues for its antagonists or what have you to be like, here is like a rando little asshole, and then they get like some goofy piece of technology, and then an episode later someone goes like, oh, I'm gonna call that person Livewire, and then all the nerds go like, oh dude.
Well, that's just I think what you're explaining is more of like the freak of the week.
Yeah, I want it to be like the villains this week, where it's just like 3 little dorks, and I guess Banshee is among them, and they're it's like robbing a convenience store, and then they drop like, oh yeah, that's Intergang. It's like, oh yeah, okay. I want more than that, which I think
that's a fair criticism, honestly.
Granted, I think that this show is setting up. I think that it across 2 seasons probably will get to doing this is episode 3. I'm just not as big of a Superman fan as you guys are, so I've got more of just like a objective, not having skin in the game take on it. It's still a good show. I'm gonna give this episode a 7, closer to a 6 than an 8, but a 7.
Okay, I mean I think that's fair.
Still entertaining.
I think I probably agree with you more than I realize. I do think I want the show to start juggling, and I think it's just modern day consumerism that's like, come on, get to it already. I do want to see the show like tackle some bigger Superman threads. I would love to see the show do Brainiac personally. I think the action and style would really yield itself to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like that will probably happen.
I'll say this much, which is an underrated thing to have in comic book media. Maybe not so much anymore, but especially when we were growing up. Superman is undoubtedly in Lois, but Superman is the best part of the Superman show in this, which is good, because a lot of times when you have comic book adaptations, they tend to be carried and defined by the villains, and it can be like the villains are what are making the headlines every week, and the hero is just kind of there, and it's safe and it's boring. I think this is an example of that not happening, where I'm tuning into this show every week because of Superman, which is good. That's very good.
Yeah, it's something we didn't really touch on last time, but Jack Quaid is doing a really good job.
Yeah. it's like it's like the Batman effect. Like Batman's absolutely the best part of that movie. So if Superman continues to be good and get better, then if their villains are a little lacking, it'll be, first of all, I really do think the villains are going to improve. I think they are setting stuff up here more than I'm giving them credit for.
Okay.
But if that is not the case, and it's just kind of like a villain of the week with a cute little nod towards what they'll become later, and Superman and Lois and Jimmy's dynamic remains as enjoyable as it is right now, it'll still be a fine enough show. So
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely enjoying. Aside from the action, which the action's really fun in this show, it really is. It's very stylized and good and energetic, and it's got a rhythm to it. It's definitely like the character dynamics with like Clark, Lois, and Jimmy that is gauging. So I definitely agree with you.
Jimmy is consistently funny.
Yeah, I think as the show lays its foundation, which I do think it's doing a good job of. I mean, we have an hour of television, and I feel like this version of Lois and Clark have a pretty established relationship that I kind of understand where it's going, and it's setting up a lot of threads. I think as it builds on that foundation, the show's going to get a lot better.
The work that they've already accomplished with Lois and Clark and their chemistry, it has me thinking like, man, imagine if this show got to that point, like in like a 4th season where you get to see the characters.
Oh God.
Well, no, but like no. What I'm saying is like when you get to see characters like age up in design, like imagine getting to see this Lois and Clark age up into the fully adult versions.
That would be awesome, yeah.
And what I'm saying is like they're doing such a good. I doubt we will get to that point.
No, I did too. Personally.
I would be shocked.
However, the fact that this show has me thinking those thoughts because I'm identifying with these younger versions of the characters so much, like I'm recognizing them as versions. I think it's a testament because sometimes these shows that scale the characters' ages down, you don't really feel like you don't really recognize it with the typical like adaptation of the character.
Okay, I think that's fair.
So I think they're doing a great job with like the age down cast feel, where I'm like, wow, I would be / I am excited to see these characters grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think one last thing we can touch on is that last scene, which is really the best scene of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah,
which is when
Mm-hmm.
Clark finally gives Lois his interview, and he flies Lois up above Metropolis in true Superman fashion. And I once again really like that Lois has clearly got the hots for Clark and is reserved with Superman here, which I think is such a good direction to take these characters. Very modern. Um, but I love the moment when Lois asks, "Is this how you see the world?" And then Clark asks, "Yes, it's beautiful," and he's looking at her, and that is just Superman, like understood to a T,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really well written. And I know it's been done before. Once again, my biggest criticism on the show, the first episode, is that it's been done before. But after warming up to it a little bit, I'm fine watching it again because one, it's been so long since we've got an animated Superman, and it's just being done really well here.
Yeah.
That was my whole thing was like you said that it was like the standard Superman kind of mold with the Lois and Clark scenes. That was the thing where I was like, okay, yeah, I don't mind watching this again. But when she just instantly calls him out at the end, I was like, okay, this show has unique things to do with the characters, and they're mixing the old and the new, and I think they're going to continue to strike that balance well. I think we're gonna eventually get out of the villain introduction phase of the show,
Yeah.
and that'll be exciting because then
I mean,
pay off.
one thing I do want to see happen is I want Lois to this Lois is very like risk taking. Like most Loises are assertive, but like she will just flat out break the law, like all the time. And I really wanted to start having like some consequences behind that, because like she like breaks into like Stryker prison and is like walking around, and then like the next scene she's just like there's just like no consequences, and I'm like I want her to be like. I want her actions to catch up to her a little bit because I feel like she's kind of like invincible right now.
Yeah, in a perfect world, this show would pop off. It'd get a little bit more mature once the characters are established and once we have some real deal villains.
Okay.
And then it would turn into a all-timer. But for now, very cute, good show, good introduction to the character.
I'm gonna give this episode an 8 out of 10. James.
I'm probably gonna give it a nice good 7.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely liked it the most out of the three of us.
They done gave Superman an anime intro. If that's
hilarious.
If that sounds even a little bit enjoyable to you, go watch it and you will get something out of this. That's about all I have to say.
The intro of the show is so funny. Like I was like, what is
I
going
cracked
on?
up.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on? This show legitimately has like it has like I expected like an anime song to come on. Like legitimately, it was so funny. Like, and
it starts doing Cruel Angel's Thesis.
Yeah,
dude. Like, him like sighing in the cornfield. I was like, oh, they're doing it.
Yeah, I want more of that energy. Like
I think this was easily the most anime the show got.
I want that grit and rhythm to it more than like the cutesy diddly like, haha, isn't this funny? Like I want. And the show should still keep that because it clearly is part of its identity and part of what it's going for, and I don't mind it. But like, I want more of that, like, like there's like wind coming from no direction, and Clark is standing in the middle of a field, like sighing and reflecting. I want more of that. That's funny and it's enjoyable. And I mean, that's not even something I knew I needed. It was like anime Superman, and it's really cool. I mean. Call me a nerd, but that's just fun,
Nerd.
that's just enjoyable.